Hello everyone and welcome to the lesson. The subject is boardroom dynamics. Today we are going to start on a new chapter known as governance structures. This chapter has 8 sub-chapters. Number 1 is governance theories related to board structure. The second sub-chapter is board structures. Number 3, components of governance structures. Number 4, board size. Number 5, committee structure. Number 6, director considerations. Number 7, best practice when creating and implementing governance structures. Number 8, evaluating governance structures in business. This is the areas we required to study under the topic governance structures. Governance structures. So we will begin by looking at the governance theories that are related to board structure. Governance theories related to board structure. Candidates, what is a governance structure? First of all, before we define board structure, we need to define governance structure. Now, governance structure, candidates, is a framework that specifies the distribution of rights and responsibilities amongst different stakeholders in a company. It is a framework that specifies the distribution of rights and responsibilities among different stakeholders such as the board, the managers, and shareholders. A governance structure also, candidates, spells out the rules and procedures for decision making in corporate affairs. So structures are just include the rules, the procedures that guide the decision making process in an organization. That's the meaning of governance structure. I repeat, governance structure is a framework that specifies the distribution of rights and responsibilities amongst different stakeholders in a company. And board structure, candidates, board structure refers to, or we can say is concerned with the balance of power. Is concerned with the balance of power, is concerned with affiliations and positions of members of a board. All right? Is concerned with the balance of power. That's why we shall be studying things like the powers, the functions of committees, like the audit committee, the risk management committee, the nomination committee, and so on. So board structure is concerned with the balance of power, affiliations, and also positions of members. And it is a foundation for an effective board. It is the heart of board performance. It is the heart of what? It is the heart of board performance and accountability. Later on, we shall be studying the different types of board structures, like the one-tier board, the two-tier board, and so on. So that's the meaning of board structure. Now, having defined the meaning of governance structures and board structure, let us now move into the governance theories that are related to board structures. Governance theories related to board structures. Now, candidates, the fundamental theories in corporate governance began with the agency theory. The agency theory. Began with the agency theory. And if you are at the advanced level of Certified Secretary's course, you must have come across this theory, especially through your financial management paper, all right? Agency theory. This is a fundamental theory in corporate governance. And this theory later on expanded into the stewardship theory and the stakeholder theory, which gave also rise to other theories like the resource dependency theory, the transaction cost theory, the political theory, and also the ethics-related theories, such as the deontology theory, the utilitarian theories, the rights theory, also what we call the virtue ethics theory. But all these theories stemmed from the agency theory. And candidates, these theories address the cause and effect of variables such as the configuration of board members, the audit committee, the independent directors, and also the role of top management and their social relationships rather than the regulatory framework. So for the purposes of this chapter, studying this chapter, we will focus our attention on just three of the theories that I've mentioned. Number one, the agency theory. Number two, the stewardship theory, and the stakeholder theory. Stakeholder theory. We are going to study three theories in our today's learning session, beginning with the agency theory. Agency theory. Agency what? Theory. Now, agency theory has its roots back to the works of Jensen and Macklin in around 1970, mid-1970s, around 1976. It was exposited by Alchan, a person called Alchan and Demsetz. That is in the early 1970s. It was further developed by Jensen in after around 4 years, around 1975-76. And this theory, candidates, is defined as the relationship between the principals and agents. The agency what? Theory defines the relationship between principals such as shareholders and agents such as management. The agency theory describes the relationship between principals such as shareholders and agents such as the management or the company executives. The agency theory, candidates, perceives the governance relationships as a contract between shareholders and the managers. It defines the relationship between shareholders of a company and the agents of a company. These agents are managers or the directors. All right? And according to this theory, candidates, the principal of the company hires the agent to perform work. In other words, the principal delegates the work of running the business to directors or managers who are agents of the shareholders. And candidates, directors, it has been argued seek to maximize their own personal benefits, taking actions that are advantageous to themselves but detrimental to the shareholders. That has been the argument. And that brings or gives rise to what we call the agency problem, where the owners or the principals delegate power to agents. There is always a problem that may arise. That's the problem that is known as the agency problem. So it is a relationship between principals and agents. So candidates, the agency theory involves a contract under which one or more persons who are the shareholders engage another person, the directors, to perform some service on their behalf, which includes delegating some decision-making authority to the agent. And if both parties to the relationship are utility maximizers, then there is good reason to believe that the agent will not always act in the best interest of the shareholder or the principal. And there are myriad of cases in which directors treat a listed public company as though it was their own property, exploiting their position, receiving unsanctioned benefits, and taking remuneration unrelated to their performance at the detriment of the shareholders. Directors may also take a different view to that of their shareholders on corporate risk. After all, it is seldom their money they are risking. And of course, successful management involves taking controlled risks. But directors might hazard corporate funds on riskier ventures. For example, having what we call hostile takeovers. We've had such cases before. They may engage in such risky endeavors at the detriment of the shareholders. So agency theory, candidates, offers a statistically rigorous insight into corporate governance processes. And because of its simplicity and the availability of both reliable data and statistical tests, this theory, the agency theory, has proved a powerful approach to corporate governance theory building. So this is the first agency, the first governance theory related to board structure. Agency theory. The second theory is the stewardship theory. Stewardship theory. Now, the stewardship theory has its roots in psychology and sociology. And the theory is defined as a steward protecting and maximizing shareholders' wealth through firm performance. All right? This theory posits that a steward protects and maximizes shareholders' wealth through firm performance, because by so doing, the steward's utility functions are maximized. And in this perspective, stewards are company executives and managers working for shareholders. They protect and make profits for the shareholders. Unlike the agency theory, stewardship theory stresses not on the perspective of individualism, but rather on the role of top management. The role of top management being stewards. The role of top management integrating their goals as part of the organization. Integrating their goals as what? As part of the organization. And candidates, the stewardship perspective suggests that stewards are satisfied and motivated when organizational success is attained, as opposed to the agency theory, where the agents may seek to satisfy or profit from the company at the detriment of the shareholders. So candidates, this theory, the stewardship theory, is a framework which argues that people are intrinsically motivated to work for others or for organizations to accomplish the tasks and responsibilities with which they have been entrusted. The theory argues that people are collective-minded and pro-organizational rather than individualistic, and therefore they work towards the attainment of organizations, attainment of groups, attainment of societal goals, because doing so gives them a higher level of satisfaction. Now, candidates, this theory therefore then provides one framework for characterizing the motivations of managerial behavior in various types of organizations, such that we may have where ownership is the basis of power over the corporation. Directors have fiduciary duty, who acts as stewards of the shareholders' interests, and so on. And inherent in the concept of the company is the belief that directors can be trusted. Directors, the bottom line is that there is that belief that directors can be trusted. There is that belief that people collectively are motivated when organizational goals are achieved. The other theory states otherwise. All right? Stewardship theory. This theory states otherwise. This theory states that as a result of the pursuit of personal or individualistic goals, the directors seek to maximize profit for themselves at the benefit of the shareholders. And that is a problem, agency problem. Therefore, there has to be some way of checking the greed of these managers through various means, like having auditors to counter-check their work, like firing some of the directors, threatening some of them who may not be pursuing to achieve organizational goals, and so on. So there are various measures that can be put in place to mitigate against the agency problem that may arise under agency theory. But stewardship theory is the opposite. It states that directors can be trusted, and the directors seek to maximize value for the owners, and so on. Stewardship theory. This is a theory that is related to board structure. You can see how the relation comes about. All right? If directors can be trusted, then you can see the owners can delegate more power to such directors. But if this story says that directors cannot be trusted, then it means that the kind of the level of delegated authority could be limited or can be checked. So stewardship theory argues that people are collective-minded and pro-organizational rather than individualistic, and therefore they work towards the attainment of organizational goals. The third theory is a stakeholders theory. Stakeholders theory. Now, another point to note under stewardship before we move on to the stakeholders theory is that the stewardship theory reflects the classical ideas of corporate governance, believing that directors can and do act responsibly with independence and integrity. Independence and integrity. They do not inevitably act in a way that maximizes their own personal interests. But we know these other theories states otherwise. The stewardship theory, as I close on this candidate, states that directors need to recognize the interests of customers, employees, suppliers, and other legitimate stakeholders in governing their organizations, but under the law. But what? But under the law, their first responsibility is to the shareholders. And there could be conflicts of interest between stakeholder groups and the company. Okay? And in such a case, the company should use what we call competitive pressures in a free market. The company in such a case will rely on legislation and legal controls to protect customers, such as in case of monopolies, such as monopoly law, the competition law, and so on. We also have employment law, health and safety laws, consumer laws, there is suppliers laws, like the law of contract, the credit payment law. We also have laws in relation to the society, the environmental law, health and safety law, taxation law, and so on. So such conflicts in that may arise under what the governance that may come out of the stewardship theory can be sorted out by laws, legislation, and the free market sources, free market forces. So coming to stakeholder theory. Now, stakeholder theory candidates was embedded in the management discipline in the 70s, and it was gradually developed by Freeman in 1983-84, where corporate accountability was incorporated to a broader range of stakeholders. So the stakeholder theory can be defined as any group or individual who can affect or can be affected by the achievement of organizational objectives. And the core idea of stakeholder thinking is that corporate governance has the responsibility to consider the views of their stakeholders in corporate self-regulation. The concept of stakeholder theory challenges the central position of what we call managerial capitalism. Stakeholder theory candidates, in simple terms, states that when making decisions, a company should consider the interests of all the persons who may be affected by a decision that a company makes. Stakeholders like the shareholders, the employees, the government, the suppliers, the customers, those are company stakeholders. So the idea of stakeholder theory challenges the central position of managerial capitalism, and two arguments have also been prompted, which include, number one, that today's companies are no longer fit for the old model of governance. It is argued that the concept of ownership has shifted from its hard strand, and therefore companies can no longer accurately be viewed by the owners as private property. That was the old view, that the company belongs to only the shareholders. This theory expands that old concept. Another argument is that it develops around the power relationships between business and society, and it claims that social power comes along with the social responsibility, and hence failing to mitigate the costs that arise out of, say, industrial pollution, hazardous products, job dissatisfaction, will inevitably raise questions about the exercise and the limitation of corporate power. And stakeholder theory candidates suggest that if companies adopt a unit of analysis of the relationship between a business and the groups and individuals who can affect or are affected by it, then it has a better chance to deal effectively with the various problems that may arise, like the problem of value creation and trade. And the question there could be, in a rapidly changing and global business, how is value created and traded? Another problem could be the problem of the ethics of capitalism. And that question in relation to capitalism would be, what are the connections between capitalism and ethics? Yet another problem could just be also the problem of managerial mindset. Managerial mindset. And the problem here, the question here could be, how should management think? How should managers think about management to better create value and explicitly connect business and ethics? And candidates, from stakeholder perspective, business can be understood as a set of relationships among groups that have a stake in its activities. It is about how customers, how suppliers, how employees, how financiers, how bondholders, how banks, how stockholders, including communities and managers, interact to jointly create and add value. And to understand a business is to know how these relationships work and change over time. And it is the executive's job to know how the relationships change over time. It is the job of the executives to manage and shape the relationships in order to create as much value as possible for all the stakeholders and to manage the distribution of that value. Candidate stakeholder theory states that there are relationships among groups that add value to a company. Stakeholder theory candidates, in other words, tells us that companies do not operate in a vacuum, that a company on its own cannot add value. A company on its own cannot add value. A company will need employees, will need suppliers, will need financiers, will need consumers of the products. So it's important that the managers understand that a company is a set of relationships among groups that have a stake in the activities that make up the business. It is about how customers, suppliers, financiers, communities, and managers interact to jointly do what? Create and trade value. Jointly create and trade value. Jointly create and distribute value. When a company creates value, it is because there has been interactions. The company bought raw materials from suppliers, the company employed people to work, a company took some loan from a bank, a company had to get some license from a government agency somewhere, all right? Shareholders had to have meetings with the managers, so there are many interactions. And to understand a business is to know how such relationships work and change over time. And that's the work of the executive, to manage and shape such relationships in order to create as much value as possible for all the stakeholders, not for shareholders only, no, for all the stakeholders. And where stakeholder interest conflicts, the executive must find a way to rethink problems so that the needs of broader group of stakeholders are addressed, and to the extent that can be done even, that can be solved, in the process of solving that, more value can be created. There has to be some trade-offs. And if trade-offs have to be made, and sometimes that happens, then the executive must figure out how to make the trade-offs and then work on the improving the trade-offs for all sides. That is, if there is any conflict between the stakeholders. And finally, candidates, I can say that although effective management of stakeholder relationships helps business survive and thrive in a capitalist system, it is also a moral endeavor because it concerns questions of values, questions of choice, questions of potential harm and benefits for a larger group of people and individuals. So, a description of management that focuses attention on the creation, maintenance, alignment of stakeholder relationships better equips practitioners to create value and avoid moral failures. Is that clear, candidates? In our today's lesson, we've described 3 theories related to board structure, beginning with the agency theory, stewardship theory, and stakeholders theory. We've defined agency theory, we've defined stewardship theory, we've described the 3 theories. Now it's your turn to do the following assignment. Describe 3 governance theories related to board structure. Related what? To board structure. Go through the video one more time. Write notes. Today I didn't write much on the board, but you can stop the video, put down the notes, then close the video, see if you can do the assignment without referring to the notes. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye.